So most speakers, first of all, thank you for having me, and it was great to be at the RBC hosted Tech Toronto event and have my customer say, yeah, she might be a good speaker. But the drawback of that is that the customer says, this is a really good topic that you should talk about. So I'm actually talking about a topic that companies like RBC are struggling with every day, working with vendors like us in the room, because we're small and they're really big. And so there are ways that you can navigate that sales cycle without it having a injurious impact, hence pig with Band-Aid, on your company. How many people here sell in some capacity within their company? So a really good chunk of you. It's really great to see my sales guy back there going, yeah, I do. So have you ever had the experience where somebody says so passionately to you, yes, I want to do this with you. Let's start a pilot. Let's start a POC. Let's start right away. Let's try something together. How many people have experienced that passionate yes from a buyer? Right. And then have you had it where like a year later, you're like, yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen now. Maybe it's 3 months later. Maybe it's 18 months later. No, I'm positive this time they said they're ready. It's going to happen. Well, there are things that you can do to help shorten that cycle and to make it easier. And the responsibility is yours. It's not an RBC's. It's not a Global 1000's. It's not your customers. It's actually yours. And so I'm just going to quickly go through what some of those tips can be, and I'll hang out later in case you want to talk through it. So first of all, the biggest one, my company is about 4.5 years old. I work with Fortune 50 companies, Fortune 500 companies, Global 1000 companies, primarily between here in the UK, certainly globally. And I've, along the way, got really, really good at enabling my customer to buy. Now, if you've seen any videos of GainX or of us talking about it, enabling your customer to buy repeatedly into the future and to refer is actually how we define innovation. But I want to back out of that and just make the really clear point to you that when you're negotiating with your customer and trying to close, two things are happening. One is you need to enable them to innovate with their customers. So I don't care what you're selling. If you're not helping your customer be more innovative, you don't have something sustainable to sell. You need to tell a story that is clear for them on how you're helping them become more innovative. And I'll spend another minute on that shortly. The other thing is to understand that you're never selling to one person. So usually when you get that really passionate person saying, yes, yes, let's do this, let's do a POC or a pilot or something, you then enter and find out that there's probably 5, 10, 50, 150 other people you actually have to influence. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that. The quickest way that you can do that is to give your prospect or your customer the story that they can bring internally. And I know that some young companies are really afraid to do that. You're afraid to let them tell your story. You want to be there for every demo, for every meeting, for every presentation, but you can't. Because that one buyer that you have might be in the airport with some of his teammates or with his boss, his or her boss. Or they might be on an elevator, or they might be out for a glass of wine, or they might be at TechTO. And they start talking about you. And the more you can enable them to tell your story, the better you're going to enable them to buy from you against that audience that they also have to influence. And so having to help them improve the customer experience as you map through that buying journey and understanding what the buying journey is and continuing to evolve your story is going to dramatically reduce your sales cycle for you. Okay, avoid injury. So this was the best piece of advice that I think I've ever got in sales. And that is to get the contract before you get the contract. And as soon as I started doing this, my sales cycle reduced dramatically. But more importantly, I got to weed out those ones that weren't serious much more quickly. So to get the contract before you get the contract is as soon as they give you that nod, yes, let's do this, detail the schedule that you need to go through with that prospect before you get to the in order to get to the go live date. So I would recommend you actually go in with that checklist. And if you don't know what it is, find out what it is. So have that draft form. Do we need to go through procurement? Do we need to do an NDA? Do you need a one-pager? Do we need to go through legal? Is there going to be security checks? And you've probably found most of them don't know. And so if you can enable them to buy, again, it's enabling your customer to buy, and give them a sense of, well, my experience working with other companies just like you has been that we tend to start with an NDA. And sometimes a one-pager will help. We can scratch out a statement of work while you're kicking off legal. We've already gone through the security check with other companies like yours. This is what it's going to look like. You're going to give them the confidence to buy from you. You're also going to help them navigate procurement, which most of them don't know how to do. So that was a really key piece for me. The other thing was to know the influencers. And I asked, who are the influencers? Who else do we need to share our story with on how we're going to help you? And you need to make your story unique. Remember I had said, help that customer tell the story. You need to make that unique to their pain point, not the same across every single sale that you make. It's not the same across every single sale that you make. So for example, GainX is an innovation strategy management software platform. There are 4 key problems that we always solve in the market: visibility, delivery, measurement, engagement, every single time. Some companies really don't care about the latter 3. They just want greater visibility. If I can find that out early on, I can start talking about how we're going to help them get a greater return on investment by gaining visibility through the following way. Here's how they can start to tell that story. They don't care about engagement or measurement, so I'm not going to go into those. If they do, then that's where I'm going to focus. So you really need to do the homework up front to hear what that particular buyer's pain point is and help them tell the story. All right, be nice to procurement. Quite seriously, be nice to procurement. I think they kind of have a tough job, but I also know it's their job to negotiate me down. So I get things like, well, POCs are typically free. And my response is, hugs are free, software is not free. So let's start negotiating. So I'm quite willing to stand my own. I don't care if they think that I'm very, very small. I don't care if they think I'm very, very young. I'm selling something that I know is going to be incredibly valuable to them. So I don't let them negotiate down below the value. All right, finally, all the stuff that I just said, one is never one. There's always a team behind that buyer that you have to help tell the story to. Get really good at understanding what the story is that your buyer can tell, and get the contract before the contract. You want to make this a very repeatable, predictable process for yourself so that you can continue to enable your customers to buy from you. When you're doing that, yes, you're selling, but more importantly, you're actually enabling your customers to buy in a very innovative way. You're helping them innovate. You're innovating. Thank you. Questions? Questions?
I'll start.
Okay. Do I give you the mic?
I'll yell out.
Okay. Alex is going to yell.
Or you can repeat it, actually.
Okay.
If you're something that helps save your customer cost,
Yes.
how's that selling innovation to their customer?
That is a great question. So if you're selling something that helps your customer reduce costs, how's that actually helping them be innovative for their customer? Because when you're helping a customer innovate, you're helping them in one of 4 ways, either through their strategy, their market, their operations, or their culture. Those tend to be the 4 areas that you touch on, and every single one of them is equally important. So what I just heard you say was operations. If you can reduce the cost of your operations, you can reduce the cost of your pricing for your customer, enabling them to buy. Or maybe you don't reduce the cost of the pricing, but you're able to invest in more features. You're able to invest in better services. You're able to invest with that profit that you're going to make in something that will ultimately be passed on to your customer. So if something is happening inside of your company and it's not enabling your customer to buy repeatedly into the future and to refer, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Helpful?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes?
You mentioned about the initial pilot. How do you price it? How do you price the initial pilot? So what is like that contract
Okay.
compared to the full-on contract?
I mean, a really easy way to start is to look at your competitors in the market, if you have competitors in the market. I know a lot of startups believe that they don't have competitors in the market, that they're the first, and like there's absolutely nobody else doing what I do. But what you are likely competing on, if not that particular solution, is budget. So they're spending that budget on something else. So what else are they doing before they use your solution, and what are they paying for it? And then price above that. I mean, if you start to compete on price to be the lowest in the market, you're just going to be commoditized, and you're not going to have something that lasts in terms of its innovation. You're going to spiral down. So I would come in, but be able to argue what the value is above that. The other flip side of that is you also want to disrupt in the market on two things: price and value. So by undercutting, so one of the things that we offer is an ability to benchmark an organization's capacity to innovate. And we undercut consultants by 10 times their price and offer, quite literally, our customers have told us, 10 times the value. So we're able to kind of slowly slope up that pricing because the value is becoming greater and greater, but I will never outprice the consultants because I know that's a competitive advantage that I have. Helpful? Any others? Okay, thank you.